Hello everyone. Welcome to the very first 1111 Matrix Code video for the year 2025. As always, I'm your host, Garrett King. Man, if you knew how many times I have recorded that intro trying to get it right. Oh boy, that's what happens when you don't do a video for a couple of months. Yeah, geez, it's been a while, right? Yeah. So as many of you know, I have been working a lot with my day job, and I've been working on a project that has just really been eating up a lot of my time, both in the evenings and on weekends. And I'm thankful to say that project is done for the most part. There's a little bit of cleanup work that needs to be done, but not the heavy extent that has been my life for the past 2 months. So I'm very grateful for that. And it has actually allowed me to take an entire week off from work. So this week, I don't have to think about work at all. And I'm so happy about that. Just because, you know, it gives me the time to catch up on some things that I have been neglecting. And this channel, unfortunately, has been one of those things. And I do apologize, but life just gets in the way sometimes. And it ends up being, you know, what it is. So, but like I said, hopefully that project is pretty well done. Just some cleanup work that'll take place, but hopefully I can start putting out videos again more frequently. So yeah. Today's video is going to sort of play off of the last video that I did on mirrored numbers, and you'll kind of see the progression or how this has led me to this thought process of where, you know, I'm at now. And the information that I'm going to show you today. So the last video was on mirrored numbers, and we're going to kind of look at that in the sense of palindromes. And I'll just kind of basically start from the beginning and kind of just explain how I kind of got from point A to point B. So, again, I was thinking a lot about palindromes, and I know for a fact, and we all know this because we've talked about it on this channel numerous times. I've shown you guys numerous times that if you take the very first verse of the Torah, Genesis 1:1, that has the value of 2701, and you add its mirror reflection, you get 3773, which, as we know, is a palindrome. And so my thought process was, well, how many other verses do this? And so I started a spreadsheet going through and calculating what the gematria value was for every verse, and then taking that value and adding its mirror reflection, its digital mirror reflection. And at first I thought I was onto something big because in the very beginning, they all started turning back into palindromes. And I got super excited about it, but then doing my due diligence, I started looking into that and questioning, is this happening because this is something unique? Or is this happening because it's just a natural process for numbers to do this? And as it turns out, it's not that unique. Almost every number, and I want to be very clear when I say this, almost every number, when added to its digital mirror reflection, will eventually turn into a palindrome. Now, there are a certain number of numbers that's kind of a weird way to say that that won't do this, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this word correctly or not, but I think it's called Lashrel. if I'm not mistaken, it's like Lychrel. I don't know why they're giving that name to these numbers, or if I'm even pronouncing that correctly. I have no idea. But there are a certain group of numbers that are known to have not produced a palindrome after a certain, number of tries. And prime example is the number 196. Now, that number has been taken up all the way into the billions and has not once produced a palindrome. So, for example, Genesis 1:1 having the value of 2701, we add its mirror reflection of 1072, and we get 3773. Okay, so that instantly becomes a palindrome. It reads the same forwards and backwards. And so as I was going through the verses and doing this, some of them would happen straight away. When I say straight away, I'm talking like the first instance it would turn into a palindrome, like with Genesis 1:1. Sometimes it would happen after 2 times. Sometimes it was after 3 times and 4 times and 5 times. And I think the biggest one that I got, it was after 12 different instances of adding the mirror reflection and getting the new result, and then taking that new result and adding the mirror reflection of that, and so on. It finally, after 12 times, it finally turned into a palindrome. But this number, 196, like I said, it's been taken all the way up into the billions, and to this date has never produced a palindrome. I don't know if anyone's ever taken it past that or not, but it's just one of those numbers that is well known to have not produced a palindrome to date. So, yeah, so when I thought I was kind of onto something, turns out I wasn't. This is just something that happens naturally with numbers. Again, the majority of them will turn into a palindrome, and just a small grouping of them, for whatever reason, never will. But with that thought process in mind, I instantly thought of a certain phrase, a certain verse, if you will, but it's a phrase within that verse that isn't a numerical palindrome, and it isn't a written palindrome. It's more of a spoken palindrome. And when I say spoken, I'm saying that the way that you say it one way is the same way that you would say it the other way. But that doesn't mean that you're pronouncing the words backwards or that the words are being written backwards. It's just being spoken backwards. And I have to be very clear about that because, again, I don't want you guys to think that I'm saying you have to pronounce it backwards. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you what the phrase is. That way it'll make it much more clear of what I'm trying to say here. So the phrase is, I am that I am. Okay? Now, when I'm saying it's a palindrome of sorts, you have I am, the word that sitting right in the middle, and then I am afterwards. So if you were to look at it and go the other direction, you would have I am, that in the middle, and then it finishes off with I am. Okay? So it's more of a spoken verbal palindrome, not a true palindrome in the sense that, you're flipping the letters around and reading it backwards. Or the numbers, like you would with numbers, 3773 one way, 3773 the other way. It's just a spoken, it's a verbal palindrome, if you will. So I start looking at that verse and I start finding very interesting connections taking place, and I see things starting to unfold that tie directly back into everything that I've been talking about in reference to the central figure, Jesus Christ, not necessarily being a man, but being the energy source that binds everything together. Okay. It's I've said it before, it's the Force, if you will, from Star Wars. It's what connects all of us to everything, to one another, to this pen, this desk, this computer, everything. It's the one key element that it makes up everything in this simulated reality. Okay? It's the building blocks, if you will. And I'm going to show you this breakdown and this encoding, and the connections again are off the chart, and you cannot deny these connections. So yeah, let's just have a look at it, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So let's jump over to Windows. And I have the JLA Tanakh research program brought up here. And I'm just going to read to you these two verses. Now, that verse, I am that I am, is found in Exodus 3, and it's verse 14. But I want to read to you verse 13, the one that comes right before it. And we're going to kind of break down what's happening in these verses. So the first one, verse 13, it says, "And Moses said unto God, Behold, when I come unto the children of Israel, and shall say unto them, The God of your fathers hath sent me unto you. And they shall say to me, What is his name? What shall I say unto them?" Okay? And then verse 14 says, "And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he said, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you." Okay? Now let's break this down. So what is Moses saying to God? So Moses is basically saying to God, look, when I go in front of these people and say to them, your God has sent me to you, and they say back to me, oh yeah, right? Really? Well, what's his name? And then Moses is saying to God, like, what am I supposed to say to them? Like, who am I supposed to say is the one that sent me? And so then God replies, I am that I am. And that you're to tell them, I am has sent me unto you. Okay? Well, that's not really a name. Now think about this. Think about that phrase. I am that I am. What is that really saying? To me, okay, this is my breakdown of this. You can agree with it or disagree. It's fine. But when I start showing you the breakdown and the encoding, these connections, again, like I said, are off the chart. But to me, by saying I am that I am, God is literally saying to Moses, I am everything. I am everything. I am that all that I am. I mean, I am everything, including you. Okay, now think about that. Think about that. So Moses is to go in front of the children of Israel and say, your God has sent me to you. And they're to say, oh, okay, well, you know, well, who is this? Who told you to come here? And Moses is supposed to say, I am? Now think about how that sounds. It sounds as though he is saying that I am the one that sent myself to speak to you or to come before you. And that is the breakdown, because God is telling Moses that he is all things. He is all things. He is made up of all things, including Moses himself. And Moses is simply acting as the host to the spirit, the spiritual energy, this force, this thing that I'm talking about, this thing that is being referenced as Jesus or Jesus Christ. That is the spirit. That is the thing that binds everything together. And that is the true message that Moses is telling them, that your God is a part of me. Your God is a part of you. We are a part of the same thing. We're all connected. We're all connected. Now, let me pull this up here. So it's in Exodus 3:14. Now that phrase, I am that I am, is right here. Okay. And this phrase literally translates to, I will be who I will be. Okay. So there's two translations here. I am that I am, I will be who I will be. Which is interesting because that is the more, how do I want to say this? The more literal translation of this, I will be who I will be. Which, when you take that into consideration back to what Moses is saying to the Israelites, I will be who I will be. The tie-in is that I will be God, just as you will be God. Now, I know a lot of people are going to hear this and say, and I've talked about this too, that if this energy source is coursing through everything, then we're all essentially God. But that doesn't mean that individually we are each God. It means as a collective whole, we all make up the essence of God. Okay? Now, let's look at the breakdown of this. So we're going to look at this through numbers. And this is where the breakdown really starts to come in, and you start seeing, again, the encoding taking place in this. And the references all come back to one central idea, and that is the central figure in the Bible of Jesus. Okay? And again, that figure being the energy source that connects everything. So, okay, let's start breaking this down. So, this phrase, I am that I am, or quite literally, I will be who I will be. Now, this phrase has the value of 543. Okay? 543. And who is the one asking God, what name shall I give? Well, it's Moses, right? Now, what are the chances that Moses, the host for I am that I am, would have the value of 345? Now, think about this. 543, 345, those numbers are mirror reflections of one another. Okay? Mirror reflections. Now, and that's in Hebrew standard gematria. Okay? So I am that I am, or I will be who I will be, has the value of 543. And the name Moses has the value of 345. Now, that may seem like a coincidence, but I guarantee you it's not. It's not. This is intentional, and you'll see this. You'll see this. Because again, this is so deeply encoded, folks. So let's go back to I am that I am, and let's really look at this phrase. So this phrase is made up of 3 words and 11 characters, okay? 11 letters. Now, there's some special encoding going on right there that we'll talk about here in just a moment. But let's look at the gematria values for each word. So I am has the value of 21. So you'll have 21 and 21. And then that center word that is either that or who is 501. Excuse me. So we add all those together and we get 543. But let's break this down. So 543 will reduce to the number 12. Okay? So 5 plus 4 is 9, and 9 plus 3 is 12. Now, obviously, because it's the exact same numbers, 345 is going to do the exact same thing. So 3 plus 4 is 7, and 7 plus 5 is 12. Okay? But there's another breakdown here. Let's take each one of these 3 numbers, 21, 501, and 21, again, and reduce those down. So 2 and 1 is 3. 5 plus 0 plus 1 will be 6. And then again, 2 plus 1 is 3. We get this new number, 363. And 363 just so happens to be the value for the Messiah. Okay? The Messiah. Now, I want you to think about something else here too. We've talked about the numbers 12 and 21 in the past. These 2 numbers, again, are mirror reflections of one another. Okay? 12 is 1 and 2, and 21 is 2 and 1. Obviously, mirror reflections. So, and if you recall that, I probably went down. Yeah, here we go. So the number 37, which we talk about a lot on this channel, is the 12th prime number, and 37's mirror reflection of 73 is the 21st prime number. So we have a deeply encoded reference already to Jesus and Christ, because 37 is the value of Jesus and 73 is the value of Christ. Okay? And knowing again that 37 is the 12th prime and 73 is the 21st prime, we see those numbers playing out right here. Okay? Now, not only that, but if we take 12 times 12, we get 144. And 144 is the value for Lord Jesus Messiah in Hebrew Standard Gematria. And then, of course, 21 times 21, the mirror reflection, is 441. So we're getting a mirror reflection. The resulting number is the mirror reflection of the number just before it. So 12 times 12 is 144. 21 times 21 is 441. Those are mirror reflections of one another. And 441 is the value for truth in Hebrew Standard Gematria. Now, there's another interesting thing going on here, and it's with the name Moses, okay? So I want you to look right here, if I can zoom in. So we see that Moses is made up of the letter Mem, and then we have Shen and He, okay? Now, I've talked about this before. There are 5 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, excuse me, that when they appear at the beginning or in the middle of a word, they look one way, but when they appear at the end of a word, excuse me, I'm getting choked up here, they change shape, okay? So if you look up here, this is the standard spelling for Moses, Mem, Shen, and He. Well, if we take the Mem and add it to the end and take the He and add it to the beginning, now think about that. the beginning is the end and the end is the beginning, then mem, the shape of it has to change, okay? Because it's appearing at the end of a word now. It's still the same letter. It still has the same gematria value. It's just the shape of the letter has changed. It's much like if you have the word this appearing in the middle of a sentence, then you have a lowercase t. But if the word this is appearing at the beginning of a sentence, then it has a capital T. It's sort of that kind of change. Same letter, it's just the shape of it's changed. So by swapping those two letters, changing the beginning letter to the end and the end letter to the beginning, we get the word that means the name. The name. Now think about this. Think about those two verses. Moses is saying to God, what name shall I tell them? And his name is literally transforming into the name. That's what I'm going back and talking about, that when God says to Moses, I am that I am, I'm all things, including you. And when Moses goes back to the children of Israel and tells them, your God has sent me, and they say, well, what is his name? He's the host. He is hosting the Spirit. We're all hosting the Spirit inside this human meat suit. We all have the same Spirit. We all have that same binding connection, that spiritual energy, this thing known as Jesus. Okay? So again, it's interesting that just swapping those two letters and we get the name. Again, in Hebrew Standard Gematria. Now, here's something else interesting. So we know that 37, because 37 is the 12th prime, and 37 is the value of the name Jesus, or the word Jesus. And 73 is the value for Christ, and it's the 21st prime. So I took 12 times 37, and we get 444. And I wanted to see what would happen if we took 21 times 37. Well, we get 777. You add those two numbers together, 444 and 777, and we get the number 1221. Now, interesting that we're getting 12 and 21 when those are the two numbers that we simply multiplied to the number 37. Okay? Now, even more interesting is if we take 444 and multiply that times 777, we get 344,988. And then using that comma code that we have seen numerous times, we take 344 and add it to 988, and we have 1332, which I've talked about before, is the matrix gematria value for the word truth. Okay? So again, it keeps coming back to Jesus and the truth. It's as though the truth is being revealed through this encoding. Now, another tie-in is that if we take 543, the value for I am that I am, or I will be who I will be, and we add that to 345, the value of Moses, or the name. So 543 and 345 equals 888. And 888 is the value of Jesus in Greek gematria. So again, it keeps coming back to this central figure of Jesus. Now, not only that, but 888 is also the value for the Messiah, the Lord of hosts. Okay? The Messiah, the Lord of hosts. And it has the value of 888. Now, think back to what I just said. So Moses is talking to God. God is to is telling him that you're to go to these children. You are You are the speaker. You are speaking my words through you. You are the host. Again, there's that connection that even though he's speaking the words of God through him, he is made up of God. We are all connected, and all of us together are what make up God. Not individually, but together. We're all a part of God, but together we make up the full essence. Which, I mean, when you really think about that, if people could just really understand that, then how could you possibly hate your fellow man or hate another country because, their ideas and their values are different than yours? If we could all just get on the same freaking page with everything and realize that we're all connected, we all have value, we all mean something, and we all should mean something to one another because we're all made up of the same source. And again, we see that being played out right here in these numbers. It's incredible. It really, truly is. And you really start to see, again, just how deeply encoded the Bible truly, truly is. And you have to just look at, or you can't, sorry, let me just kind of back up. You can't just look at the surface text and take it at face value and say, that's it. You have to really dig in and see what it's actually telling us, from the surface text to the deep hidden encoding that's taking place. Because there's obviously a very clear message that is coming out through this encoding. Now, very quickly before I move to the next slide, I want to talk about this connection up here. This 3 words and 11 letters. Now, there is a interesting little connection going on here, and again, one that most people wouldn't think about, or they're going to bypass because it's not like super obvious. That connection. So remember, the value for each word when reduced, we get 363, and that is the value for the Messiah. Okay? But let's look at something here. It's 3 words. Okay? It's 11 letters. So we're going to do 3 times 11. We get 33, okay, which is the value that, or the age that Jesus supposedly was when he was hung on the cross. Okay, so 33 is the age that he was when he died. But again, keep in mind that phrase, I am that I am, verbally reads the same, okay, or spoken the same forwards and backwards. So we could say it basically twice, or look at it as though it exists twice. I am that I am, and I am that I am. Okay? So now we have 3 times 11, 3 words, times the number of letters, and then let's multiply that times 11 again, because we can again read it both ways. So times 11, and we get 363. Okay? The same value that we see right here for the Messiah. So let me do that again. We're going to take 3 times 11 times 11, 363. So again, another deeply encoded reference here, and it's a tie-in back to the number 1111. So very cool. Very cool there. All right, now let's move forward. So there's something else kind of interesting here. Now, there's technically 3 different ways to spell the name Jesus or the word Jesus. One of them, it's odd. When you look at the way it's spelt in one way, when you look at it on its own, it simply just translates to Joshua. Straight up, Joshua. But yet you take the same spelling and it just drop it down in the middle of a phrase and it just suddenly instantly changes to Jesus. Okay? So let's look over here. So this is it. This is Joshua. Okay, so I'm going to take this phrase and I'm just going to copy it. And we're going to go right here to Google Translate and just paste it in. And as you can see, it translates to Joshua. All right. However, if we take, where did I have that? It's over here. If we take the same spelling, so I'm going to copy that and go back over here, and I'm just going to put this phrase directly underneath that. Now, I want to show you something here. Now, it's translating this to Lord Joshua the Messiah, and it's doing this because I have the word Joshua sitting up above it. Okay? Now, if you look, it's the same spelling. Okay? So we have Yud, Hey, Vav, Shin, and I think that's Ayin. And the same thing down here, Yud, Hey, Vav, Shin, Ayin. So if we get rid of this one up here, watch what happens. The translation suddenly just becomes Lord Jesus Messiah. Okay. Now the other spelling is this one here. And this is the one that is most generally looked at because this is the one that also reduces to the number 37 for Hebrew ordinal gematria. But in Hebrew standard gematria, it has the value of 316. Okay, so let's copy that. Let's come back over here and paste it in. And as you can see, Jesus. And then let's go to the gematria calculator and we're going to paste it in and hit submit. And as you can see, it has the value of 316, but in Hebrew ordinal, it has the value of 37. This is where we keep getting that 37 and the whole 73 thing showing up time and time again. Okay. Now, the other way to spell it is simply to add the letter Ayin to the end of this right here so that we wind up with this here. Now, I'm about to sneeze. Sorry. It's that time of year. Okay, so I'm going to copy this, come back over here, and we're going to go to Google Translate and paste this in. And as you can see, it also translates to Jesus. Okay? So thinking in terms of the palindromes, I begin to question, okay, there's really no difference between the two spellings, the last two spellings, other than that letter Ayin appearing. Okay? And so I began to question what would happen, just out of curiosity, what would happen if I took this spelling of Jesus and added it to the end of this one, but literally spelled it backwards. Like, just spell it straight up backwards. And let's close out some of these. Okay. So I'm just going to show you. Okay, so we already have it here. So now if we were to spell it backwards, we're going to put another Vav, another Shen, and look what happens here, and then another Yud, and it quite simply translates to Jesus Christ. Okay. And we have a palindrome, literally spelled out. So Yud, Shin, Vav, Ayin, one way, and then going the other way, Yud, Shin, Vav, Ayin. So Ayin is sitting right smack dab in the middle. So I thought that was interesting, and it's interesting that it translates to Jesus Christ. Now think about this. I'm going to show you something here that's very interesting. So Jesus being the energy source, the one thing that binds everything together in the universe. And we have this reference or this event taking place in which Moses is speaking to God, and as I just kind of broke down, we see this depiction of the spiritual energy is what's being described here to Moses. Okay, so if I put a space here, what are the chances that it would just suddenly translate this to Jesus and Moses? Like out of nowhere. We remove the space, we have Jesus Christ, we add the space back, and we have Jesus and Moses. That's the translation that's coming up. But this is not how you spell Moses. It's not. Moses is literally spelled Mem, Shin, and Hey. And again, as you can see, it's not going to change here because I have this up here. But let's get rid of that. And we can see that the translation is Moses. This is how you spell Moses. But again, just interesting that this translates to Jesus and Moses. It's odd. Okay? So basically that's what I'm showing you here. And by doing this, we're literally combining these two together. This one spelling of Jesus and the other spelling of Jesus. One has the value of 316. The other one has the value of 386. And by combining those, we get the number 702. So 702, the value of this spelling of Jesus Christ, and also obviously being the same value as Jesus and Moses when we put that space in between. Now, what's interesting is that 702 is also the value of the word of the Lord of the Old Testament. Okay? 702, the word of the Lord of the Old Testament. And that's in Hebrew Standard. Now, I'm going to point this out here very quickly, but I don't want to sidetrack myself. I also put in the word incarnate because what is Jesus essentially in the Bible? Jesus is supposed to be God in the flesh, God incarnate. And I was just curious as to what the value of that word would be, and it just so happens that the value is 74, which is literally 37 plus 37. And 37 being the value, again, to Jesus, the word or name, Jesus. So there's that connection right back again. But what's interesting about the number 702, okay? 702, when added to its mirror reflection of 207, 702 plus 207, and we get the number 909. 909. 909. Never seen this number pop up before, at least that I don't recall having ever talked about 909 before. And if I have, I apologize. I just don't recall talking about that number. But here's what's interesting about the number 909. So when you take all of the prime numbers up to 37, so this would be the first 12 prime numbers from 2 to 37. Okay, so that's the first 12. And we simply add up all of those numbers. So 2 plus 3 plus 5 plus 7 and so on up to 37. Take all those primes and we get the total of 197. Now do the same thing, but now we're going to take it up to 73. So again, all the prime numbers from 2 to 73, we're going to add those together, and that will give us the first 21 prime numbers, and the total is 712. Well, when we add 712 to 197, we get 909. 909. And again, remember, 37 is the value for Jesus, and 73 is the value for Christ. Jesus Christ. It all comes back. It comes back again and again and again back to this central figure, the Spirit. It's, again, I'm telling you folks, it's the energy source that courses through everything. And we're literally seeing it. It plays out so many different times. And it keeps coming back to these same numbers over and over and over again, that the connections are undeniable. It's simply undeniable. And I think that, again, this is my interpretation. Again, you may disagree, and that's perfectly fine. You don't have to agree with me. But for me, it's pointing back to the simple fact that this spiritual energy, this thing that the Bible is referencing and talking about again and again and again, is this spiritual energy source. And again, that it courses through all of us. We're all connected. And that seems to be coming, like I keep saying this, in several videos that I've done in the past, that we're all connected. And it just keeps coming back to that and showing it time and time again. So yeah, it's rather interesting to see this breakdown in this encoding. And if we're to only look at the surface text, only looking at the surface text, we would never see any of this encoding taking place. We wouldn't even know it existed. And even though it's sitting right there in front of our face and has been this entire time. Now, before I wrap this up, I want to show you very quickly that breakdown that I was talking about with the palindrome numbers. Now, I haven't gone through all of the Torah, so I started doing Genesis 1, then Genesis 2, and then Genesis 3, and I started seeing, okay, these numbers are coming back to palindromes, but, and then again, it just raised that question, is this normal, or am I really onto something, And so I really wanted to find out before I went through the entire Bible doing this, I think I would have been kind of upset if I had done the entire Bible only to discover, well, this is something that just happens naturally. So yeah, I didn't do the entire thing. I just started doing it and then realized, okay, these numbers are coming back to palindromes, except for one. I'll show you something here in just a second. But yeah, they all started coming back. And the interesting thing is, some of them come back to palindromes that a previous verse came back to this exact same number. So let me just show you this. So Genesis 1:1, having the value of 2701, we add its mirror reflection of 1072, and we instantly have 3773, a palindrome. Okay. Genesis 1:2 has the value of 3,546, so we add its mirror reflection of 6,453, and we get 9999, again, a palindrome. It reads the same forwards and backwards. Now we get to Genesis 1:3. It has the value of 813, so we add its mirror reflection of 318, and we get 1131, not a palindrome. So we're going to add its mirror reflection of 1311, and boom, we suddenly have a palindrome, 2442. Okay? And so on. So over here in this column with the black background and the white text, this is the Bible verses. And then this column right here where it has 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 1, 12, and so on, that is indicating the number of steps that it took me to reach a palindrome. Okay, so this was just one step. I added the forward or the number and then its digital reflection, and I got a palindrome. One step. Same here. And then this one, I added it, the number to its mirror reflection. I get a new number that's not a palindrome. So then I add its mirror reflection, and then suddenly I land on a palindrome. So it took 2 steps, and that's why I gave it the number 2, and so on. Now, when we get down to Genesis 1 and verse 26, which has the value of 4,764, as you can see, it goes across in red, and I took this pretty far. As you can see, this big-ass number right here is the total of these 2 numbers here. So this is the first number, and then this is its digital reflection here, and the new total is this, and it's still not a palindrome. And that's quite a ways. I've taken it quite a ways up, and it still has not produced a palindrome. Okay. Now, back to what I was saying about some of them having the same value. Well, as you can see here, Genesis 1, 2, it turns into a palindrome that's 9999. And then Genesis 1:20 does the exact same thing, even though the value of the verse is completely different. So Genesis 1:2, the value is 3,546. And Genesis 1:20, the value is 3,906. Completely different numbers. But adding their digital reflection, it comes out to a number that we've already seen. So 3773, it happens again down here with Genesis 1:13. So 1:13's value is 1342. We add the digital reflection of 2431, and we have 3773. So same thing happened here with 1:5 and 1:6. They came back to the same number, the palindrome of the same number, 3553, and so on. Okay. Now, again, not every verse has done this as of yet, but like I said, I haven't gone through the entire Bible. So it's very possible that somewhere down the line, we're going to see 2442 show up again, 5995 show up again, 7777 show up again. All of these that are in red are ones that I have not found the same number showing up somewhere else. So like 9999, we have it here, we have it here, and then we have it down here. And yeah, so far it's only showed up 3 times. Now, I also had another instance, and I didn't take it as far as I did the other one, and I'll show you why here in just a second. But Genesis 3:21 is doing the exact same thing. It has the value of 2856, adding its digital reflection of 6582, gives us 9438, and we continue that process. And this one is also not producing a palindrome. Why did I stop at 8884788? Because if we scroll up and look at the other one that also didn't produce a palindrome, we see that even though it didn't start with the same number, it's eventually landing on the same number down the line. And I already know that this one isn't producing a palindrome. So the same one down here is going to do the same thing because the numbers are now matching. They reached this point where they combined into the same number, even though they're separate verses and they started with a separate total. That digital adding of the mirror reflection number is producing the same numbers down the line. So that's why I stopped. When I got to this number, I was like, wait a second, 8884788. That sounds familiar. And so I start looking up here and I realized, well, wait, it's right here. So if I continue adding the mirror reflection, it's just going to keep producing a new number. That's not a palindrome. So I may very well continue this. Even though there's nothing unique about the numbers turning into palindromes, there very well possibly could be something unique about the number of times that certain numbers appear repeatedly. So 35552 and 35552 right here. There may be a reason that they're coming back to these same numbers. And it could, produce something that we need to look at even deeper. So, yeah, I think I will continue this process and just see what comes of it. May not be anything at all. Who knows? But that's what research is. You try something, see what happens. You're never going to know unless you try. So, all right. I think that's going to be it for this time. I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas and Thanksgiving holiday, for those of you that celebrate those holidays. But I also hope that you all had a wonderful New Year's and that the remaining of the year is just great for everyone. We shall see. Yeah. So, and hopefully I can start putting out videos again on a more regular basis, because I'm not going to be tied up with this project that I've been tied up with at work. So, okay, folks, that's it. Let me know what your thoughts are of this breakdown. And again, like I've said, you don't have to agree with me. I'm not saying that this is like the absolute truth. I've never said that. I've always said that this is my research. This is what I'm finding. You guys do your own research. And if we come to the same conclusions at the end, that's one thing, but if you find something completely different, if you find somewhere that I have screwed up somewhere along the lines, then, let me know, because I'm only human. I'm prone to make mistakes. We all are. But these connections, regardless of whether you agree with them or not, you can't deny that there is a code taking place here. It's so obvious at this point, especially when it can be replicated over and over and over and over again. So there you have it. All right, that's going to be it for this time, folks. Again, thank you for being patient and bearing with me. Hopefully, amazing new stuff coming this year. We will wait and we will see. Okay? So until next time, I hope you all take care and we'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.